Thank you so much, Monica. All right, well, welcome everybody this morning. So hopefully, I'm assuming that all the people that are on here are actually, looking for jobs. They've been into our platform for our Career Expo this morning. For anybody that hasn't gotten into the Career Expo platform yet, just wanted to let everybody know that that is going to be, it's 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So it's open all day long. We do have live hours, 9, noon, and 6 p.m. Those are kind of like the key peak hours where a lot of the companies will be on the other end answering chat questions, things like that. But I will drop that link in the chat here as well for anybody that's on Zoom. And Ali or Monica, if somebody can help me drop that link for the Virtual Career Expo on social as well, that'd be helpful. Just to give you guys a brief overview, again, my name is Nikki Caboose. I'm the VP of Development with Palm Beach Tech. I also have Monica Rojas. She's our Member Engagement Specialist on here with us as well. And then Ali Costa, she's our Summer Talent Intern. And Joe, I think he's still on, CEO and President is here as well. Basically, we are a tech nonprofit. We started almost exactly 5 years ago. We will have our 5th year anniversary on July 29th. We can drop that link in the chat as well for anybody. You're welcome to join, that is open to the public. And we basically just made the announcement a little over a month ago that we're going to be expanding to a regional South Florida organization. So now we've got members from Miami to Martin County, and we'll be able to, pull together some more activities, kind of what we're doing today with the career expos. We have technical workshops. We do a lot of like tech talks, panel discussions. So there's a lot of things to get involved in so you guys can connect with the community, educate yourselves. And our whole goal and mission is to build South Florida into a tech hub. So, we do work with a lot of the local colleges, universities, and of course, like today with Diane from Modernizing Medicine, a lot of the headquartered companies that are here that are looking for talent. So I am going to pass this over to Diane Dagher. She's head of the talent team over at Modernizing Medicine, and I'm going to let her tell us a little bit about herself, the company, and then of course, whenever you're ready, you can take it away with your presentation, and you should have availability to share your screen as well, Diane.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Nikki. And I want to just say congratulations as well. 5 years in the community. I actually remember when Palm Beach Tech was starting out, like very early. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago. And just really appreciate who you are for Palm Beach and now, for the region. I think as a company and just me individually, we are really excited to be part of the growing technology community here in South Florida. Feel very strongly that it's important to cultivate that talent locally as well and help support the tech community. I'm a parent also, and I want to make sure that there's opportunity for my kids here and so that they don't have to leave one day and go work someplace else to find a good job. And so anyway, really just appreciate you and what Joe and the team are doing here in South Florida. So thank you very much, and congratulations, 5 years. That's awesome. It's not easy. I know it's definitely not easy to do that. So hello everyone, can you hear me okay? Am I broadcasting okay? Perfect, okay, good. So my name is Diane Dagher. I am the Senior Director of Talent for Modernizing Medicine. We are, as Nikki said, we are a software company. We're headquartered here in Boca Raton. We're located at the Boca Raton Innovation Center, which is just off of Yamada Road in Congress. We have been in business now for 10 years. We are actually a very headquartered-centric company, but I will say since March 13th, we have been very much a remote home-based company and not sure when we'll be moving back to the office. So we are living in this kind of virtual environment and feel fortunate that we're able to do that. So a little bit about me. So I thought I'll give you a brief introduction into who I am, and we can talk about Modernizing Medicine and the company and our interview and hiring philosophy. And then I thought I would go into maybe giving some tips or just ideas to you as you're looking to grow your career. Sorry, I just timed out here. I do like to keep, just like interviews, I like to keep these conversational. It really is just as much about you as it is about us. And so I'm looking forward to hearing your questions and a Q&A at the end. All right, so let me share my screen. First, I'll share about modernizing medicine. Hold on one second. So, can you see my screen? Oops, hold on one second. Nikki, can you see my screen? Okay, perfect. All right. So, modernizing medicine, we're here today to talk about interview preparation. A little bit about modernizing medicine. We were founded here in South Florida in 2010. Our two co-founders are Daniel Kane and Dr. Michael Sherling. You may know Dan or have heard of him through Blackboard software. He actually helped co-found and grow that company. So any of you who are students may use that in your higher ed environment. And Dr. Michael Sherling, who's a practicing dermatologist, they actually had a doctor-patient relationship and realized there was a need in medical software to kind of create software specific to dermatology. And Dan went about developing that with Michael. And fast forward 10 years, we've got over 800 team members here in South Florida. We service 8 specialties. We have multiple solutions, just really have been able to kind of take off and fill that need within the medical practice sector for healthcare technology. In addition to our headquarters in Boca Raton, we also have an office in Roosevelt, California, which is just outside of Sacramento. And through an acquisition, we acquired a small office in Santiago, Chile, with that has a lot of technical staff. So our mission, and I think it's always important to start with the why. So why are we here? And our mission really is to transform how healthcare information is created, consumed, and utilized, with the goal of increasing the efficiencies to our practices and really improving patient outcomes. And I would say that that last piece, improving patient outcomes, is really what's important to us. That's our why. And if you've been a consumer of healthcare or have had people who have gone through the healthcare system, you know there's a lot of opportunity for improvement in just how information moves through that ecosystem. And that's what we're here to help contribute to. It's a big industry and we have a small subset of that industry, but it's something that we're very passionate about. I like playing this video. It never fails to give me goosebumps, but this is about modernizing medicine and gives you a good taste of who we are as a company. Oops. And maybe that didn't work. Hold on one second. Let's go back.
Every day in everything we do, in every task we undertake, we know that we are modernizing medicine.
We are more than a healthcare technology company.
Our solutions and services
create greater efficiencies
with time and cost savings for physicians.
That's great, but everyone says that. How are we different?
We are modernizing medicine by providing more medical wisdom at the point of care
and giving doctors the ability to practice enhanced evidence-based medicine. We've done more than create a great EMR system and specialty solutions that work with it. Through our solutions, we're delivering medical wisdom into the hands of physicians to improve healthcare. I am Dr. Michael Sherling, co-founder and chief medical officer of Modernizing Medicine. We wanted to create a great EMR system and other solutions to help physicians in their daily work. But we wanted to do it in a way that would deliver more long-term value to more than just the doctors using our solutions. We wanted to help improve healthcare.
You can't do that with most EMR systems and integrated solutions. I am Karen O'Byrne, Chief Financial and Operating Officer. At Modernizing Medicine, numbers are more than just bottom line results. The number of doctors whose work lives we improve and the number of patients we can impact through improved healthcare outcomes are also measures of success.
And to modernize medicine, it takes breaking down barriers
and creating solutions that improve the patient experience.
It takes more engagement, communication,
and doctor-patient collaboration.
At the core of what we do, it comes down to people. Every day, we look for the brightest and best talent to join our team.
It takes a shared vision
and commitment
to a single mission to really modernize medicine.
I know that what we do matters because every new employee who walks in the door will share in how we are modernizing medicine.
Every day in everything we do. In every task we undertake, we know that we are modernizing medicine.
I'm Dan Kane, founder and chief executive officer of Modernizing Medicine. Together, this fantastic team of people are going to truly revolutionize the way we create, consume, and utilize information to improve patient outcomes and improve the productivity of those providers.
That's powerful.
That's meaningful.
And that matters.
I am Ivy Rivera. I am Dr. Ilana Oberstein.
I'm Kevin Lang, Associate IT Specialist.
Account Administrator, Regional Sales Consultant. I'm the Medical Director of Gastroenterology.
I am Rick Trusker.
I am Dr. Michael Sherling, and
We are Modernizing
Medicine.
we have more than jobs, more than careers. We live a mission, and that's powerful. It makes all the difference.
All right. So hopefully that came through okay. Nikki, did that come through okay? It's kind of weird having a one-way audience, and so I'll check in with you periodically and make sure everything's going as planned. So, and hopefully you get through that video that it really is about our team. And this line was in Modernizing Medicine before I joined 9 years ago. So when I joined, we had about 20 people. Today we're over 800. But this thought that really it takes a great team to modernize medicine. It takes more than a great product. It takes a great team. It's something that we really, it's kind of our charge in going forward. And that's what carries through the hiring process, which is, I know, is what we're talking about today. And so our philosophy around hiring isn't filling a seat, it's filling a need. So we always start with, like, what are we trying to accomplish? And we look at the interview process, we look to the interview process to help support what we are trying to accomplish. We don't want to hire someone and have them join the team and then, 2 months later it doesn't work out, it wasn't a good fit. That doesn't work for us, and it definitely doesn't work for our candidates or our team members. So we put a lot of time and focus on that hiring process to make sure that it really is a good fit. And with here's what, in general, the pre-COVID hiring process looked like at Modernizing Medicine. So it's pretty intense. You'll see that we start with a phone interview with my team and talent. That's usually about 30 or 45 minutes, and really just kind of assessing, is this a potential fit for the team? Pending the results of that, we go on to a second phone interview. Usually it's with a hiring manager or someone senior on the team. Again, can be 30, 45 minutes, and really just doing that deeper dive into fit. If we're in agreement on both sides that it looks like a potential fit, then we move on to a third, and this is pre-COVID, which was in-person interviews with the hiring team. And that hiring team usually is comprised of the hiring manager, different team members who the candidates would be working with, as well as stakeholders that they might be interacting with outside of their role. And again, this is structured, and you'll hear me say this a few times, but it's really structured for our candidates as well as the hiring team, because we want you to be able to make an informed decision. There's also a technical assignment that comes along that's relevant to the job. And we included this really because sometimes we see that people can interview really well and they talk a good game, maybe, but when it comes to doing the work, they didn't really have the skills or the experience or background to do the work really well. And conversely, some people don't interview as well because, you get nervous, things like that, but they actually have really good skills and are a good fit for the job. So we use this as a pretty strong data point, kind of this technical assessment, which isn't a test. It's usually more of a project or a case study to give people also an idea, not just for us to assess skills, but to give people an idea of what the job would look like or feel like before they're actually joining, to see if it is something that they really want to do. And then the fifth part of our process really is that kind of background and reference check process as well. So this was pre-COVID. And then I put a post-COVID slide in here as well, which actually isn't any different other than this third step right here, which are video interviews rather than in-person interviews. And we have had to pivot. We see that works really well, though. It's been actually even easier in some ways to schedule because people have more flexibility. We don't have to put the interviews all lined up consecutively. They can cross different times or different days. And so that's been really helpful as well. Okay. Wanted to talk to you a little bit today about our hiring or our interview philosophy, and it's something that we've worked really hard on and try to put a lot of thought into. We believe that everyone has something to contribute, and we work to really treat our candidates that way. So being respectful, staying in communication, that process, I think that's really important. How we look at the interview process is we look at it as an opportunity to see how does this position and what we're trying to accomplish in this role align with the person's background, their skills, and their interests. And so it really is more of that conversation and that exploration. It's not a script or something that we try to be overly formal about. It really is kind of let's see, like, how does this line up? Is this a fit? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But even those conversations often turn into different roles or opportunities, whether at the same time or down the road. And as I said a few times already, we do believe that the interview is a two-way street. So this process is just as much for our candidates as it is for us. And that's something that I think is true of any interview that you go on, and something to remember is that try to engage as much and take as much ownership. I mean, I think it is, you have to kind of finesse that, but find out as much as you can about the opportunity when you're going through the process, so you can determine, what does it look like? What does success look like? Is this something I really want to take on? Is this a fit for me? And even by showing that engagement in the process, you really stand out as a candidate. And we look at the interview as a way to support and facilitate both as a company, and the candidate's ability to make informed employment decisions. So that's the general philosophy. Some of the keys, I think, to interviewing success is really being prepared. And as I was developing this slide too, I think it also works on the hiring side. We have to be prepared as interviewers or our hiring team. Like, what are we trying to accomplish? What does this look like? Making sure that we're not asking candidates the same questions over and over again. We're reviewing their background, all of those things. So this is for both hiring teams and candidates, but as a candidate, I think it is really important that you're prepared, being positive through the process. I think that's important. Being engaged, asking questions, and really ultimately being yourself and being authentic. I think that's something that stands out for us as a company, is just our authenticity, and who we are. And I get a lot of that feedback from people who have gone through the process. Okay, so kind of step one, being preparing for your interview, researching the company. There's so much information out there, certainly on LinkedIn, Glassdoor, things like that. Look at companies' history, the industry that they're in, what they're trying to do, kind of what type of business are they in. There's usually press releases and news releases for companies that are out there, what locations they have, but just kind of doing your homework. It's a very basic step, but it definitely helps you stand out as a candidate, and it shows up when you're talking to people. I know I really can tell when a person has done their homework, and that shows to me that they're taking it seriously. Also, one thing that's on here, I think that you can do is leverage your network, people you know. Do you know anybody that knows of the company? What do they know? Things like that. And with social media and things like that, it's pretty easy to reach out to your network these days as well. You also want to make sure that you can find out as much about the role as possible. So certainly looking at the job description and being very thoughtful about it and kind of basing your questions on the job description. You can also do your research and look at people who are in that role currently. You can see a lot of that usually on LinkedIn. So that's kind of preparing from the company perspective, and then preparing from your perspective. I would say really thinking about your background, what you've accomplished in your career. If you have experience, maybe it's in an industry or roles that are dissimilar to the company that you're interviewing with. So being prepared to talk about that in terms that someone who's not familiar with the industry or the company or the role can understand. I know sometimes I'm talking to candidates and they'll start throwing out like very industry specific acronyms or terminology that I'm not in, let's say finance or something like that. And it's harder for me to understand. So being cognizant of who your audience is and making sure that how you're describing your background, you're presenting it in a way that's consumable to them. My favorite interview question, actually, that I try to ask most of my candidates that I'm talking to is, tell me about your most significant accomplishment. And that might be either in a career or that might be in a specific role or specific function, just depending on the level of the candidate. But really being able to talk about your accomplishments, what role you played in the accomplishment, how you got that done, how did you measure success. I think that's really important, being able to articulate that, um, is definitely good. And conversely, I often ask as well, which I didn't put on this slide, is being prepared to talk about some of your failures. And we see failure as an opportunity to learn and grow, and what you took away from it. So really being able to talk about your accomplishments and maybe some of the challenges that you've had. Um, and the other thing I would say about accomplishments, they don't necessarily need to be professional accomplishments. If you're early on in your career, if you're in college, it could be, maybe you play sports and you're on a team and, there was a big game that you were preparing for, and like, what did you do? What was your role? How did you get through that? Or if, it's academic, I've heard definitely people talk about having to work through college and, kind of pay for college themselves and how they got that done. And those are very tangible things. So your accomplishments don't necessarily have to be just in a specific position or kind of professional. They can expand out from there as well. Talking about being positive and positive impressions, I think showing authentic enthusiasm, and really keeping that in your mind as you go through the interview process. What is it that you're excited about? Because that will show up in the way that you speak. So really kind of think about and focus on why you're excited about the opportunity in the company. And even if you're not talking about it all the time, it will affect the way that you come across in the interview process. Maintaining appropriate eye contact and engagement with your interviewers. I think that's really important. You don't want to just stare at somebody and kind of that can be intimidating, but making sure that you're showing that you're engaged in the conversation. I think virtually that can be a little bit, different, but we've been able to transition pretty seamlessly through that. If you're having a phone call with someone and maybe you can't see them, making sure that you're giving those verbal cues that show that you're listening and asking questions and things like that. One thing that I think is also really important to remember is that it is okay to be nervous. I actually, especially, with early career professionals, really appreciate when someone is a little bit nervous, because it shows that you care and that you're excited about the opportunity, that you want to make a good impression. And so it's okay to be nervous. Don't feel like, that's a bad thing. I actually think it's a good thing. And, try to stay calm and breathe and do all those things, but don't worry too much if you're a little bit nervous. Appearance, I think some of these things are kind of no-brainers and they go without saying. You want to make sure that you're presenting professionally. We often get questions on like, what should I wear to the interview and things like that. Again, I think research plays a role here. If you can get an idea of what the norms are for the company, you always want to be just a notch above. So if you're going into banking, typically that's a very formal environment. You want to make sure that you're really kind of dressed appropriately and present appropriately. In software and technology, it can be a little bit more relaxed. I definitely wouldn't come in casual though. You want to be minimally, business casual, but even a step up to show again that you're taking it seriously, that's something you're putting time and effort towards, and that goes a long way. And then just listen attentively. This is really important, and sometimes, and I think it can come along with nerves, but people will have a list of questions. Everybody says, oh, you should ask questions during the interview, but one specific example around listening attentively, I think where it matters is oftentimes those questions are answered through the interview process, but people feel compelled to ask them anyway. And that can give the interviewer a sense that you're not listening. So it is really important to be present and in the moment and kind of listen to what the person is saying and even paraphrasing making sure that you understand what the person is saying. If you think you might not be clear, that's a really key factor, I think, in order to be successful in the interview process. And again, ultimately make a good decision. I wanted to share with you some questions that you may want to ask as you're going through the interview process. I think it's really important to focus on the position. I mean, there's a lot of material out there that can help you prepare for an interview. So these are just some of my favorites. Certainly, we could probably spend hours talking about this subject. But first and foremost, I think it's really focusing on the role. And I like this question, what qualities do you think are important to be successful in the role? So if I'm a candidate and I ask this question, it shows, okay, like I'm really thinking about how would I be successful if I were to get this position. Asking again, like, what are the big accomplishments? Like, how will you know somebody is successful in this role in their first 30, 60, 90 days, what have you? Asking what are some of the challenges, that come up. Again, it shows a real thoughtful approach to the position and really wanting to make sure that you can be successful. And then what are the biggest opportunities in this position as well. And so kind of, again, thinking more long-term about the process and the opportunity. And then being yourself. And I think this is really important. Again, I mentioned this earlier on, we have, from my perspective, a very authentic culture. We kind of want you to be yourself, when you're working. And so kind of remembering that, being able to genuinely articulate your skills and your accomplishments and your interests, that's really important. Remembering, I've probably said this 3 or 4 times already, but that this process is for you and it's designed, we design it. And I think you can approach your interview as an opportunity for you to make informed decisions about your next career move. Nobody wants to get into a situation and then 30 days later, 2 weeks later, say, oh, this is not what I was signing up for. So how do you avoid that? I think it's asking really good questions and finding out as much as you can, appropriately, of course, through the process. And then also just trying to have fun. This is something that we hold as a core value, actually. And it doesn't mean being silly or not serious through the process, but trying to, enjoy it as much as you can. Clearly, I mean, that might seem a bit naive if you're interviewing and you're nervous, but just try to engage with the people that you meet with and get a sense for who they are, and that can be a lot of fun as well. Okay, so that's all of my presentation. I was hoping today that we could spend some time and do some Q&A with you. And I'd love to hear any questions that you might have about interviewing, challenges that you've had in your kind of interviewing journey, and I'm happy to help to the extent that I can anyway, get through that. All right, so I'm not sure how we get questions. Maybe Monica or...
Yeah, if anybody wants to take themselves off mute, you're totally welcome to just kind of holler out your questions here. Or if you want to drop them in chat, we can make sure to read them aloud as well. Does anybody have any questions that they can think of immediately?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Marcio?
Yes. Good first try. It's Mauricio, but thank you.
Mauricio.
So nice presentation. I enjoyed it. This is my first time using the Virtual Expo, so I have a quick question. When you apply for your job, because I did apply for the Associate Software Support Specialist, and it said successful, do you get an email or something? Because I checked my email just now. I didn't get any updates or anything.
When you apply, so I'm not as involved on the front lines of the virtual career fair. So I think what happens is it's a 2-step process when we're going through virtual career fair. So we'll get your resume, and then we'll likely add it to our applicant tracking system, and then you'll get an acknowledgement of the application. But you can also go to our website as well and apply directly, just to make sure that you get it, and you will get an email acknowledgement when you apply directly.
And 2 more questions to that. So they're really small questions. About the interviewing with the camera, like I have a camera and I have casual, closed for interviews, but like, is it for today? Because I don't know, like, are they going to reply today? Oh, we saw you just apply. Can we interview you now? Or I didn't quite.
No.
I was like,
Yeah. No,
oh,
that wouldn't be for today, Mauricio.
okay, you're just getting email hit like like a day or two or a week, just saying.
Yeah, we coordinate the interviews for sure. So you'll have some notice. It might be 24 hours, but you'll have some notice for sure before we interview.
Yeah. So
I
it's
know
okay.
some of the companies in there were using the video if there's somebody that they wanted to talk to immediately or had the capability to do that, but a lot of the companies just don't have that time. So you may, if you apply to something specifically.
Good point. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm speaking specifically for ModMed, not for the other companies that are participating today.
Yeah, because that was in the FAQ for the expo, and I was like, "Well, what? We're going to have an interview right now?" Like, oh, okay. Yeah, and the last question is, like you said, yeah. So just apply here, and then just to be on the safe side, apply on the actual website of your company, correct?
Yes, and I would just indicate that you learned about us through Palm Beach, the career fair as well, just so we know where you came from.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's everything, and I think your presentation was helpful. So I'll go mute myself to see if anyone else has any questions.
All right, Mauricio. Good luck.
Thank you. We do have a couple in chat here, Diane. Let's see. There's one that says, what are good questions to ask when offered the opportunity if I have any questions? I don't know if I understand 100%. That's from Norman?
Let's see if I can see that as well. What are good questions to ask when offered the opportunity to ask if you have any questions? So I think a lot of it is that preparation before. And so if those questions that you had were answered, a lot of times candidates will say, I had a lot of questions prepared, but you did a great job of answering my questions through this conversation. And that's a great, that I think is a nice way to handle that. If the questions that you had prepared ahead of time were answered through the conversation. When you're thinking about good questions, though, I would say those questions like, what qualities are important to be successful in the role? What do you look to accomplish in the role? How will I know if I'm successful? Those are good questions. You can ask about the process as well, different steps in the process. You can even ask for candid feedback, which I didn't put in my presentation, but as you're concluding the interview, you can ask them, like, do you have any questions for me? Do you have any concerns with how I fit this opportunity? And ask them to be candid. And we try to make the process as informative and transparent as possible. So when someone isn't a fit, I try to let them know that and why as well, because I think that's providing value to the people who are spending their time with us. And so we want to make sure you get something out of it, even if it isn't a fit.
Perfect. Thank you, Diane. And we actually have one question in chat and one that came through private chat, which are kind of similar questions, which I actually love this one, Lydia. Says, what is your biggest pet peeve when interviewing a candidate for a job? And then the one that came through private chat is similar, is what question do you always get from candidates that you hate that you feel like they should have known in advance?
Oh, well, I guess strong word. I always tell my kids that I hate the strong word. So the biggest pet peeve I have, I think, when people interview with us is if they don't really know, if they didn't do their research, if they don't know what we do, if it looks like they're just completely winging it and they haven't done any research. I mean, that to me is a waste of time. Because we spend a lot of time and effort, not just through the interview process, but when we're hiring and onboarding and really trying to make sure that we're setting people up for success. And the expectation is that people want to be with the company when they're interviewing or that they've done their research. And so that to me, I mean, you might be able to hear it in my voice, but that really does irritate me when people don't take the time to do the research, for sure. If you're at a career fair, and you're just being introduced, I think that's an exception. But if you're kind of going through the process, you should definitely do your homework.
Good answer. So we have another one that says, so people are often told that you're interviewing the company just as much as they're interviewing you. Do you agree with this? And how can you ask direct questions without coming across like you're interrogating the company?
Yeah, it's an art. There's not necessarily a science to it. And I think as you go through the process and kind of being more comfortable with asking questions, I think being engaged. And so if you're really listening to the person and what you're listening, picking up on what they're saying, so being able to ask follow-up questions to what they're saying, but also and doing your homework, but focusing on the role and the opportunity, I think, is first and foremost. And if there are things that are really important, and what I always counsel people to do is focus on the role and the opportunity with the hiring team, because that's really what they care about, right? Is like if we have one position open, usually there's at least 1.5 to 2 people's worth of work to do. I mean, we run fairly lean, and so they want to make sure that they're going to bring somebody on board who wants to have an impact, who can have an impact, who's great to work with, and then save some of those other questions for the HR portion of the interview. So if you want to talk about benefits, career, like longer term career, compensation, vacation, those kinds of things that are very important. They're considerations. I would say they're absolutely considerations. But I would talk to the HR team about that, because that's really where that conversation should go. And then and really focus on the opportunity and the role with the hiring team and with the people that you would be working with.
Okay, I've got another one here. This is from Allie. Oh, sorry. Allie said it's from Marcia wrote this is, thanks about introducing modernizing medicine. I have modernizing medicine as a dream job. I have very well developed a career in Latin America. Let's see, certain experiences, robust sales. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so I guess this one, I'll connect you with him because I think that's a private message. But I think he just wants to be connected to you. Says, what if a person is a good candidate for a position, but they wore casual clothes to the interview?
Yeah, well, I think it is at first impression. So, and casual. If somebody shows up for an interview in shorts and a flip-flop like they're going to the beach, I think it doesn't convey a sense of seriousness around the role, right? And so it is, we're making a decision, kind of based on, some of it is impression. And so, and part of it is that, does the person take this seriously? And so I think showing up, you don't have to be, at least for us, you don't have to, kind of go all out and be, kind of banker style, but I do think showing, taking care is an important part of the process. I have a funny story I can share with you. This is like definite what not to do, and I feel
you
bad.
Probably have a few of those funny stories.
But this one happened, and actually I feel bad for the person. We were in a networking event, and it was a student, and there was food involved afterwards, and he came up to introduce himself to me, and he had been eating finger food. And so he wanted to shake my hand, but he had food on there. So he licked his fingers and then went to shake my hand. I'm like, oh no, I'm not going to do that. So definitely don't lick your fingers before you reach out to shake.
Yeah, you want them to be clean, but not clean with saliva. That's pretty funny, actually.
Exactly.
Let's see, I've got a few more in here. Marco Braga asked, is it common or even legal for recruiters to provide feedback after an unsuccessful interview? I wish they could. I'm assuming that question means maybe in working with like recruiting agencies, or is that like direct with internal recruiters? I don't know.
I worked, so my background too, I was a software engineer early on in my career, and then moved to San Diego and got recruited for jobs that kind of were similar to what I was doing, and that's how I ended up in recruiting and staffing. And then when I came back to South Florida, I went on the inside and started working for software companies and hiring. I think it's fine to give feedback, you know, and for us, we really focus on, you know, the fit and the qualifications. And, you know, so I think it is fine to give feedback. Does it look like, do I still have audio? It looks like somebody said they lost
Yeah,
their
you're
audio.
good.
Okay.
You're good.
I'm not sure kind of like what the legal concern would be, you know.
Yeah, I know for me, I mean, as you know, Diane, I came from staffing background as well. I know for me, I was always very honest with both the hiring manager and the, you know, the candidate side, because obviously the way I looked at it is, you know, for most, as far as, you know, recruiting companies, for us, we make money when somebody's placed. So we want to help both the candidate and, you know, the company, because we want to make the right fit. So I know for me, when I was working with a candidate, I always wanted to give them feedback to say whether it was something that they were missing skill wise, or maybe they didn't make a good impression for some reason during the interview. So I want them to do so on the next interview. So I always gave them feedback, being very honest. I think the only time where we ran into any issues was sometimes where companies would give you feedback on things maybe they shouldn't, that maybe there was some legal concerns. There's a lot of, not obviously Modernizing Medicine hopefully doesn't do any of this, but there's sometimes we would get feedback from companies that say, oh, I don't want to hire them because they're a woman. And I'm not supposed to know that at all. And I'm like, I'm not telling the candidate that. I think you guys need to reconsider, like, you know, and so sometimes we would get things like that were concerns.
And you don't want your candidates to work for a company like that anyway. I mean,
Right,
really,
right.
if they're not going to be considering somebody because of, you know, something like that, like that's not a company that you really want to be a part of,
Exactly.
in my opinion. And look, like we're all human and we make mistakes and, you know, certainly kind of bias and things like that. You know, we do kind of try to eliminate that unconscious bias in the process by having a very structured, consistent process through our hiring.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think you know,
yeah,
I
we
think
wouldn't get
something
those
as a
very
recruiter
often.
I would not want to hear. And
Yeah.
you know, yeah.
We always struggled, you know, with things like that. We wouldn't get them very often, but when we do, it was always the question of, all right, should we be working for this company, or, you know, but I think more it was just, you know, regular negative feedback that we would get for some reason. But I know for me, I was always very honest with the candidate, you know, just to help them with future interviews.
I think it pays to be honest, and I've had situations where somebody, and this is like with the technical test, I've had situations where somebody did not interview well. Maybe they were nervous. Like one person in particular, she just didn't have a lot of experience in interviewing. She had been with her previous company for a long time and hadn't interviewed. She aced that technical test. I mean, she hit it out of the park. But because she didn't seem very engaged in the process, the team was like, well, I don't know if she really wants to work here. And they were almost ready to pass on her as a candidate because she didn't show that enthusiasm that we actually really love at Modernizing Medicine. And so I went directly to her and I said, look, you know, you did great on the test. We'd love to consider you, but we just can't tell if you really want to be here. And that's part of the process. And that's when she told me she was nervous. She hadn't interviewed well. She really wants to be there. She was concerned she didn't have health care, you know, all these things. And so it was by giving her that opportunity to rectify. She is a star performer. She is great. She's advancing in our company. She's doing really well. And so I do think that candid feedback is good. It's
Yeah, and I
helpful.
think that's a good point to bring up too, is just to anybody that's listening. I know for me, like I used to always recommend to the candidates, if there's something that you're concerned about, that is something like that where, hey, I'm just nervous, say that in an interview. Go ahead and say, hey, I haven't had to interview in the last, I don't know, 5 years or 10 years. I haven't done this in a while. Like, I apologize if I'm, you know, coming across a little nervous, because I am, but hopefully I make a good impression today, and just be, you know, as honest as you can with answering questions and straightforward. But I think trying to hide it only makes you more nervous. For me, I used to always just say, hey, throw it out there, get rid of it, you send it out into the world, and then it's done, you know? So then, and that way too, the other person knows.
I think that's definitely a great point.
Yeah, and I've got a couple more here because we've only got about 10 more minutes. Oh, did somebody just say something? If somebody wants to shout out a question?
Yes, it's really fast because I saw this question in the chat and I didn't know how to type it in, so it's really fast. It's with the ghosting thing. if I know you always you want to send an email to the recruiter or the interview the next day, but what is the preferred time if you haven't got a feedback or reply if you got the job or not, like a week or two? Because you don't want to bother the person.
Right. I think, we have a goal of if we've interviewed someone that we stay in communication within a week. Sometimes just circumstances that can drag out. But we've all been on the other side of that, where you interview and then you don't hear back ever. And that's a terrible experience. That's not an experience that we want our candidates to have at all. In fact, we survey our candidates on candidate experience. It's something that we care very much about. But I think a week is a good time frame. And even setting up that expectation through the interview process, like, hey, if I haven't heard from you, how can I get feedback? It's just a good question to ask for sure. I did see, I think in the chat, a question around reviewing resumes and do we review everyone? And that can be a challenge. That can be a challenge depending on the role. I've got like a data operations engineering role that we have 5 resumes, and so we are definitely looking at everyone. But I might have another position, like sometimes marketing positions, you get hundreds and hundreds of resumes, and it's very difficult to kind of go through all of them. We do the best that we can. Sometimes it's keywords. We're looking at maybe like how do we employ artificial intelligence to help bubble up like candidates that might, kind of fit the profile of success. That can be a challenge. So I would say submitting your application is great. Also trying to network through LinkedIn. If it's something that you really feel like you're a good fit for, you believe that you have like the, kind of based on the job description and what your research shows that you have good experience and good background for the role, try to network with the company too. I mean, it's tough a little bit, when there's, a lot of candidates in the pool to get through everyone. And sometimes I've even seen where we've rejected somebody based on their resume, but they've been able to network through the company or reach out directly, and we give them a really good second look and maybe even hire them. So.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, because you don't want to be that person that bothers the recruiter. Like you said earlier with first impressions, like this person keeps on nagging me and email me. I don't like that. Like, yeah. So I always want to know.
Good question.
It's a very good question. And I think even asking the recruiter that you're working with, like what's the appropriate follow-up, and just kind of being upfront with it. I think that always helps. Like, is a week good, should I call you every day? What's the right thing? And for me, like, I know that email is really tough. And so, trying to figure out other mechanisms of communication, because my inbox can get overloaded pretty quickly.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go back to the expo, and you guys have a nice day, and thank you for your help.
Sure. You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, you too. Good luck.
So Diane, we actually have in the chat, there's quite a few questions that, so basically there's a lot of questions about like applicant tracking systems and like keywords and resumes. I don't know if you want to talk briefly on that, but I do want to mention that if you guys go to on YouTube, the Palm Beach Tech, like our YouTube channel, we actually have a bunch of our career workshops that we've done just like these today. There's actually one by a gentleman, Todd Albert from Boca Code, that he actually goes over how to write the best technical resume as possible. And he goes over a whole section of just this, like keywords and applicant tracking systems and everything. So just if anybody wants to check that out to get that a little bit more in depth with the actual like resume writing portion of it. I think he even mentions in there what words not to take out, that sometimes you're thinking about all these special keywords, but when you remove things and all of a sudden you remove yourself from like a whole line of screening. But Diane, can you speak at all to like, does ModMed use applicant tracking systems, or is it all human, or how does that work with you all?
Yeah, well, we have an applicant, whoops, I'm getting some feedback. We have an applicant tracking system that we use where candidates submit their resume for a position. Hello, John, how are you? So we have an applicant tracking system that we use for those purposes, and we have a team of recruiters who's kind of looking at the applicants that come through, looking at the resumes that come through on those. But like I was saying before, the volume is sometimes high, and so we may try to do some keyword searches based on what we think, should be in a resume of someone who's qualified. Like for us, in some roles, it's, our software is what they call SaaS software, so software as a service. So we might look for SaaS and, and something else doing that Boolean search just to bubble up candidates that kind of would most likely be a fit. So I think really understanding kind of what the job is, the job description, and how your background aligns, and making sure that you have those keywords in your resume that align with the job description that is, definitely authentic. It would be really important for sure.
Well, we've got just a couple minutes here, and I'm sorry because I know I'm not going to be able to get through everybody's questions. I'm actually really happy that we've got so many people that are engaged in asking. One quick question is it okay to take notes during an interview?
Yes, for sure. I think it's also feels like taking serious and even asking that, and I often, especially these days when I've got one screen, I'm usually toggling between a resume and my notes. I'll tell people like, look, I'm going back and forth between you might hear me typing, things like that. And just, to your point, Nikki, and you said it, it's the same advice I give people, is just put it out there, like what you're doing. And I think it shows also just that transparency, that honesty. It's really good. So.
Right. And I know for me, every time I interviewed, like I'm definitely a note taker personally. So I would always say, hey, when we were interviewing in person was, hey, hopefully you don't mind, but I'm gonna take a few notes as you talk, just so I remember or have something to take home with me. But I think with it being virtual interviews, like right now, as you're talking, I'm looking at the chat questions and whatever. So it may seem like I'm not paying attention. So again, because people can't see what you're doing, they may not be able to see that you're writing or typing notes. So just, again, throwing it out there. I think that's great advice.
I know. And the eye contact piece too, because I'm like looking at you directly, but it might look like I'm looking over there right. for you or something like that. So yeah, I mean, those are things that we're all working with. And those are, there's not one kind of silver bullet. I think it's being engaged in the process and kind of showing that you're interested and taking it seriously and comfortable, is probably really key.
And we're just about a minute until the end of the expo. So I'm just going to throw in a couple last questions here. Again, I do see a lot with resume writing. So again, if anybody didn't catch it last time, is just please go check out our YouTube page, because we do have specifically a workshop on writing resumes. So I just want to make sure that I didn't skip over any of those people's questions here in chat, but we do have one specifically for that to help you guys. I did get a couple of questions in chat also that are very similar around negotiation during the first interview. So the first one is, should you negotiate salary at all during that first interview? And then the second question that's kind of along those lines is, what other things can you negotiate? Like, PTO or some sort of like benefits or whatever, like other things that maybe if the salary isn't right in line, that can you use to negotiate with?
Sure. I have to say I'm like the worst negotiator. I'm like our worst poker player anyway. I'm very upfront. I think that, compensation is certainly a consideration, and it definitely depends on where you are in your career and kind of your circumstances, like how much that factors in to a role that you would consider. I personally try to advocate for focusing on the fit and the company and kind of longer term, not the next 3-6 months, but like, where is this going to take, where is this going to take you down the road? And like, is this a good opportunity for you, 2 years from now, 3 years from now? And because that can make a big difference too in your career trajectory. I would say, I would not negotiate in the first call. I think that's putting the emphasis too much on comp and not enough on opportunity. And what it would say to me is like, okay, if another company comes along that's willing to pay you X amount more, you're going to jump, because that's all you're focused on. And so really making sure that you're focused on the opportunity. I do think, and one of the questions that I ask candidates is, what is a range that you would consider for a position? And again, and part of it is putting the onus on the candidate. Like, okay, what is this position that I'm interviewing for? What is kind of the market? What is the value that I bring, to the table with this role and my experience and things like that, and trying to have a good measure of where you need to be and give a range. So if it's like, I would I need to be in the 50 to 60K range, depending on the opportunity and other things, you can say that. And that will help eliminate time. Like if you're way over range, and it's not going to be close, at least that would give the recruiter the opportunity to tell you like, well, we're not going to get to 50,000, this pays whatever it pays. And then you can decide from there if it's something that you still want to consider. Am I still here? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. If I froze or not.
Yeah, I have, and thank you, Monica, by the way, for putting the link. She did drop that in chat for anybody, Todd's resume writing workshop. So thank you, Monica. Last question, and again, I apologize because I know I can't get them all. Eric asked, would you suggest asking how the company has handled COVID to get a feel for the company and their culture?
Yes, for sure. And I think as well, I can say that because I'm so proud of Modernizing Medicine and the way we handle COVID. And it's hard, and we're in a unique position. We're not a restaurant where we had to shut down shut down or things like that. But I do think, and it's what I'm hearing even from, kind of my partners and people I rely on, that it does say something about the company. And you can say like, how has COVID impacted your business? And that's probably a great way to phrase that question. Like, what measures did you have to take, to handle this pandemic? And so less about kind of putting the company on the spot, because I would say by and large, we're all trying to make the best of a really difficult situation. And depending on the industry and kind of the stage of company and things like that, it impacts us differently. And so, but I do believe that, it's a challenge. And, but I do think that it can, even how they answer that question can tell a lot about the company. Like, are they being upfront and, very direct with, with their answers, or, things like that. So I do think it's certainly a relevant question to ask, for sure. Yes.
I agree 100%. I feel like the way that they answer that question will tell you a lot about the culture and just how they're supporting their teams, what they're doing. Because, I think a big thing right now is just keeping the culture in a company, because I think so many companies already struggle with how to build a culture. And I think that Modernizing Medicine, you guys have a great internal culture, but a lot of that can be lost when you're working remotely and you're not used to it. But I think, again, you guys are kind of ahead of the game with that, because you guys already have such a large like remote staff or people that travel and all that. So you guys have done a really good job of keeping that in the company.
Yeah, and it's something that we're very intentional about. I think it is a priority for us to be a positive place to work. Like we have our warts, so to speak. Like, I can't tell you that there aren't challenges and, things like that we could do better. That's true. But I think by and large, I'm really proud of the way that we handle it. I think that even going into COVID, Michael, our co-founder, was really very intense about making sure that we were washing our hands and we had sanitizers. Nikki, you were on site, like we had sanitizers and, everywhere. And that we were really being very, we had workshops even before we went out to make sure that people knew like, how serious this was and how to protect themselves. And it just shows like how much the company cares, how much the people in the company, our leadership, our executive team really cares about our team members and making sure that we're safe and well and protected and all this. So yeah, it's been a really good, good experience through a very, very difficult time, a very challenging time for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I do have to say, with Modernizing Medicine, you guys have been great. I mean, between yourself and your team, Mihai, was on our Palm Beach Tech Board of Directors. Yeah. And, you guys have been really great just about culture in general. I know that even when I was in staffing, going there to meet some of your managers and directors, and like they talked about, the team meetings that you guys do. I think it's like once a month where you get everybody together and get everybody's feedback. And like, you really do seem to care about like what the rest of the staff is saying and not just the leadership, because a lot of companies just listen to the leadership. I feel like you guys listen to the company as a whole, which I think is a lot to be said for the company.
Well, I'm maybe very hokey, and I know we're over time, but I will say like that line, to modernize medicine takes more than a great product. It takes a great team. That didn't come from me. That was there when I joined, and we had less than 20 people. It came from Michael and Dan, and I think it's something that we really do live. and we live and breathe is like really, you know, understanding that it's the people, you know, it really is about the people. So, yeah.
Good.
All right.
Well, thank you guys. I know we are just over time. I wanted to thank everybody for joining this morning. For anybody that's wondering, we actually have 2 more career workshops today. So we've got another one at 2 and then another one at 4. And then any of our past career workshops, because we had with them during the last virtual career expo, and we actually have been doing them every Tuesday at 10 a.m. up until today. So we've got a bunch of them on the YouTube page. It's in the, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Monica, the Tech Talent playlist. Am I right on that one? I think, okay, Ali says yes. Okay, so yeah, if you find the playlist for Tech Talent, there's a bunch of them in there. So thank you again, Diane. Thank you again for presenting ModMed and everybody for all your questions. Please feel free, again, the platform. Thanks, Javier, for the thumbs up. Please feel free to stop into the Virtual Career Expo. It will be open till 8 p.m. tonight. And Monica, myself, Ali will all be available for any tech support questions. We're going to be here today to help you guys get some jobs. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, guys. Good luck, everyone. Take care. Talk to you soon.
You too.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Nice to meet you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.